Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Edward Cohen. Welcome to Commercial Observer Tangent, conversations with real estate and tech innovators. Coming to you live from ICSC PropTech stage in Vegas. Very excited to be here. We're going to talk about why real estate operations have become so fragmented at scale, where operators are focusing to reduce operational expenses and improve NOI. We're going to talk about why disconnected workflows continue to slow teams down. We're also going to discuss the difference and benefits of operating systems versus point solutions, and where AI is actually helping operators today. And we do, in fact, have the perfect guest to talk about this today, Ryan Botwinick, founder and CEO of Fyxt. Fyxt is used across more than 1.3 billion square feet, helping owners and operators centralize workflows, automate operations, and improve efficiency and NOI across tenants, vendors, and property teams. Ryan, great to have you. How is ICSC treating you?
It's great so far. Thank you very much for the time. I was looking forward to this. Conference is great. Love this prop tech area. I think it's a great idea, and it turned out really well.
So real estate operations, they don't look like rocket science from the outside, but they're actually quite complex. So where do they actually get complex on the day-to-day?
Sure, and this was one of the major themes that we wanted to focus on at Fyxt, focusing on the asset classes that aren't your traditional grossed up type leases where management's responsible for everything, right? Think about an apartment building or even an office building, like a Class A office building where there's an issue, you're going to, you have on-sites. Where we started to focus, at least when we had the inception of the idea and then built out the system, was the net lease environment. So when you start dealing with asset classes that are, the portfolios built through large-scale acquisition, you're onboarding these leases that might have been signed 10 years ago, some by one broker, the next by another. They're all different. And so having to look up the lease to figure out what needs to happen became a manual process. And that's really where the breakdown begins, at least in the commercial space, retail, industrial, medical office, assets like that. And then from there, you're dealing with internal protocols, SLAs, approval thresholds, multi-bids, MSAs, right? And all of this isn't centralized for the most part. And so we set out to, one, structure that data, vertically integrate the different technologies that our clients have already in place or look to replace those that they are looking to replace, and centralize that data effectively for owners and operators. And in doing so, we're getting them out of the ERP, out of the accounting systems where they traditionally have all this information.
So, you've been already through multiple property cycles. What feels different operationally right now?
I think everybody was waiting for rates to come down over the past, I'd say
hoping, wishing.
Yeah, we'll see what happens now. With that being said, though, capital's expensive. Labor, materials, everything's expensive. So you have to find different ways to get your NOI back up. And so what we have seen is a shift from increasing rents over and over and over again as much as humanly possible to, hey, let's take a look at the line items for our operating expenses. Let's look at our CapEx projects. Let's look at the labor. Can we shave cents out of dollars? And can we, as a levered vehicle into the cap rate, increase NOI significantly for large enterprise portfolios?
Certainly, in today's market, underwriting those rent growth as we've been used to or spoiled to in recent times, operators now are under enormous pressure, as you said, to control expenses and protect NOI. So talk about why is NOI under pressure and where do operators look first?
What we have seen, and it's different too depending on the structure of the portfolio. Are you a vertically integrated owner-operator? Are you to a third-party management company to manage that budget? The third-party management companies don't see any upside from staying under budget other than getting the deal back. So we focused on really providing value to those owners first and foremost. And what they focused on was, I'm spending X, how can I shave 10% off that? Can I do that through automation and centralization and economies of scale? Can I do that with less mistakes? Whether it be human error or double work, manual entry, whatever that may be. And our operators are looking at us as an opportunity to scale their portfolios 2, 3x with the same teams that they have. So a couple years ago it was, how big's your shop? How many managers do you have? And how many satellite offices? That's completely shifted as far as we're concerned. It's, can we manage more properties with less people? Not necessarily letting go in people, but just as a ratio.
Right.
Can we do it remote without multiple offices and overhead? And that's where you start. The trickle-down effect that we found is that it then starts to infiltrate the CapEx line item. And which has been the most hesitation, at least for our clients, is the labor line item.
So, I mean, you started briefly mentioning where operations break more commonly when you inherit old leases, when you get a new property onboarded. But talk about areas like communication or vendor coordination, maintenance workflows. Operationally, where do operations most commonly break?
We took the approach that commercial real estate is an ecosystem of stakeholders that aren't always the people we're selling to. You have tenants, which are our clients' clients. You have vendors. Not all of them are going to log into a centralized system. Nobody wants to download an app. Nobody wants to go to a login. So the way that we approached that problem was that how do we on-ramp them into a system to see value, but do it in a way where we meet that end user where they are. I know it's like technical jargon, but if a vendor can use SMS and email and get all the information over that they need, and we can ingest that and structure it, or a tenant can write an email versus downloading an app and logging into something, it's a huge benefit for them to actually get that information to you. Where there's a bunch of breakdown with legacy systems is our users, or not ours, their users, would need to go outside of their system to do the email correspondence, right? The scheduling. If you have a multi-bid mandate, you're doing that over and over and over again. Then you're scheduling, and then you're communicating that to tenants who aren't always logging in, right? And so, again, we took the approach of if you want to use email, use email. If you want to be on SMS, you can do that too. But for our users, we're going to take all of that, migrate it over, structure that data, and allow them to take action on top of it. And once you take enough action, that's where you can start to automate that process, even to the relay communication back to the vendors and the tenants themselves. So that's where historically, not necessarily breakdowns happen, but just miscommunication, double work, double entry, excess labor that you don't need. And it's a frustrating experience for those stakeholders too. And so that's what we tackled first.
Such a critical insight that your clients are also your clients, whether you like it or not, in the sense that they might not be paying you directly, but they will heavily influence if someone keeps working with you.
Right, and you can't force them into anything, right? They're not paying for it. They don't feel a need to utilize the system unless there's true intrinsic value. And so on-ramp them easy, provide the value, and the adoption goes through the roof.
And you're meeting them where they are. They're used to using their communication channels. Not everyone's trying to do this, but there's a lot of platforms out there that they, for some reason, think using their messaging system is critical. When we have hundreds of messaging ways, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, we'll integrate Slack or WhatsApp if you want. Agnostic do we integrate with, vertical integration, but at the end of the day too, it is about the adoption. And we talked about it before, the on-ramp's the most important part of that.
So for those who may still not be familiar with Fyxt, high level, what is Fyxt and who is it for?
Fyxt is the AI operating system for commercial real estate. And AI is relatively, I'd say, new to the space, right? At least how it's being implemented and used. But what we ultimately do is we take your tech stack, whether it's a Yardi ERP or a Snowflake data lake or a CRM like Salesforce, we integrate those systems vertically in a SOC 2 compliant instance. We then abstract your leases to identify, hey, in this Dollar General, tenants are responsible for the HVACs, but in the one in the town over, it's actually the manager's responsibility. In the one down the street, the manager's responsible for 4 through 6 HVACs because there's a warranty on it that's still good for 2 years, right? And so all of these can be different. We digitize it and then allow that to be the hub of what pushes these workflows.
So how are these workflows typically handled today without Fyxt?
Manually. A lot of manual effort. If you think about the business processes, which is what we're coining, that we're automating, it can be anything from R&M, repairs and maintenance, inspections, certificate of insurance and compliance. We even had a client, come to us saying, hey, have you thought about doing this for tax appeal? We're like, no, but obviously that would work. They're like, yeah, you're capturing the capital project and the depreciated asset. Why can't we package that up into a report, push it to the attorney who's dealing with tax appeals? If we save 1% on that, it's going to pay for your system 2 times over. And so we also listen to our clients quite a bit. I mean, they're the experts in the space. So build a flexible system, make it simple, and give them the opportunity to be creative also to improve it for them.
There's always talks about whether a commercial real estate owner and operator should adopt operating systems or adopt point solutions for the different needs. So why did you decide to build an operating system instead of another point solution?
So in the beginning days of PropTech, being a VC-backed company, we saw a ton of point solutions that do one specific thing really well. But the problem is that all of those systems are siloed, right? Different data, different onboarding, different sign-in unless they're integrating to an Okta or single sign-on solution. The problem with that is now everybody's looking for centralization and a one-stop shop. They don't want to have to go into a third-party system to get info to then make a decision in our system. So we took the position, the thesis of, hey, if you want us to integrate with your point solution, we're more than happy to do so. But if it provides enough value to you and to the remainder of our clients, we look to build it ourselves.
So talk about how does that translate into real dollars in terms of OpEx reductions? What are you seeing across large portfolios?
I'm not sure the audience listening, but everybody out here, I mean, these are real estate folks. They understand cap rates. They understand that they can be a levered vehicle to drive significant ROI. So when we have a conversation with clients like ours saying, hey, we can save you 1% to 3% on your OpEx, 2% on your CapEx, we're talking about tens of millions of dollars, right? And so little adjustments, little change management processes, leaning into AI and centralization, they can eat away at that. And we're proving that out with the majority of our clients. And then they take it to the step further where they're like, all right, we can do so much more with this. Can I feed this information and data into the acquisitions team to allow them to make better buying decisions? And can I get economies of scale? And there's just so much that you can do once you have basically the data from your other solutions, data warehouse, ERP, whatever that may be, but then marry it with your actual operations data. Then you have analytics that sets you apart.
You mentioned a critical term, which is change management. And naturally, when a large organization is adopting a new solution, and maybe a point solution sounds a little less intimidating or less disruptive, quote unquote, may not be the right solution, and may be completely siloed, and that's a different issue. How do you approach change management when it comes to adding an operation system that they previously didn't have?
Well, it's a small world, commercial real estate. They see what their peers, competitors, or whatnot are using as well, and it sparks interest. Everybody's doing their job the best they can. And traditionally, these companies make a ton of money, right? And so who am I to say, hey, you can do it better? However, we can show you case studies effectively that prove that you can, and it's their willingness to look at those opportunities and say, hey, we do want to reduce OpEx now. Like I was saying, a couple years ago, it was all about, hey, let's raise rents, right? How do we get vacancies filled? How do we get the best tenant in? Which is still the case. It's still extremely important. But it's just such a big impact being able to shave 1-2 points off of that budget line item, and you got another $10 million in the bank. So we see it as a levered vehicle, and we stay hyper-focused with blinders on doing what we promise, which, although it doesn't seem much, 1% to 3%, it's very impactful.
Yeah, it's put things into perspective. It certainly moves the needle. I remember when I was pitching one of the largest bidders of non-performing loan and reperforming loan pools from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and we had a technology that we're able to tell them, hey, look at these homes. You just bid on 5,000 homes. Actually, 100 of them, the roof is terrible. So you should not bid on them or bid much less. And we're selling them I think it was $100,000 worth of software. It was going to save them between $7 to $10 million. No-brainer ROI, but they were bidding on portfolios that were billions of dollars. And they were honest with us. They're like, tremendous ROI. We don't get out of bed to save $7 to $10 million. I'm like, fair enough. That's for you to decide. But in this case, it's meaningful.
I think that mindset has shifted quite a bit. AI is coming. I mean, it's here. It's not even just AI. I mean, AI is just business now, at least in our world. If you don't have it implemented, you're missing out on a ton of opportunity. Even if it's as simple as saying, hey, what leases are coming due in the next 60 days? What HVACs still have a warranty on them? What are coming due in the next 6 months? Getting somebody on site, addressing that. With a vertical instance like ours, we allow you to query not only your ERP or your accounting system, but also your data warehouse, also your CRM, and the operational output data as well. So ask Fyxt anything about your business. Surface that answer, and then the logical next step for us is allow AI to take that action.
So let's move on to AI. A lot of AI conversations in CRE operations still feel somewhat experimentational or even theoretical. However, operations seems ripe for AI, especially when it comes to repetitive, workflow heavy, high coordination and communication heavy. So where is AI genuinely taking action today inside real estate operations?
The low-hanging fruit, at least to begin, when PropTech was fairly new, was lease abstracts. Okay, you had full point solution companies doing that, but that actually is the hub of our system. It's pushing these workflows, right? So lease abstraction was a no-brainer for us. And then we started really dabbling in insights. So we were having these workflows, whether it's repairs and maintenance, inspections or whatnot. But now you're able to analyze, well, what did we do last time? How did it work out with this vendor? What did he charge versus this company over there? Start to compare regions, asset types, asset sets, right? AI is a very powerful tool. We feel like it should be utilized to make everybody more efficient, but also just bring information to the surface that you otherwise would have been buried in different systems.
How do you foresee the facility manager roles and the on-site team's responsibilities change with AI?
I think it's going to be very AI enabled. So they're going to be on site taking pictures, getting diagnostics, onboarding equipment easier. Now you can just take a picture of a faceplate and it takes the make, model, serial number and then gives you the useful life, right? Before you had to beg your inspectors to fill that information in and then somehow get it into a centralized repository. So I think it's just ease of use. It's where everything's going. Not every company is focusing on AI taking action, which is where we feel like we're shining. And what I'm also seeing is that, like, you'll see it in this conference especially, it's like, oh, I'm looking for AI, but what AI? And we're starting to refine that. There's some companies that are really rising to the top of the totem pole, and then there's the AI that really doesn't provide value. That's more of a nice to have.
You've said that the future is less about dashboards and more about systems that take action. Walk us through what does that look like in practice and any example you can mention.
Yeah, I mean, it's always great to have a dashboard. That way you're monitoring edge cases, trends, can take action quick. Maybe I misspoke a little bit. I think there'll always be the value in having a dashboard, but I do see a world where the systems are taking the action and making the decisions, and you're monitoring and amending where necessary. How we're approaching workflow automation with AI is a work order happens. The manager's making a decision, the diagnostic comes in and says, hey, at a 90% accuracy that this is the problem with the HVAC, you need to replace the coils, whatever it may be. And then we let them physically take the action themselves, right? Still human in the loop. But what we're doing is we're tracking how often is it the right decision the AI is coming up with, right? Is it 99% or is it 80%? If you're at a 99+% accuracy rate on making the same decision that human would make, why not turn that on?
What's one belief about AI and automation in CRE operations that you think is completely wrong or misunderstood?
I think there's a lot that's misunderstood just because we don't know all the answers yet. I mean, it's just evolving so fast. You have one strategy, in January, and then 2 months later, we're sitting around a round table coming up with a completely different strategy because MCP is the new thing, right? So I think it's going to take a little bit of time to iron out, what works and doesn't work. But I think everybody should be trying and experimenting and seeing what does work for them. Everybody's different. Every company's different. They have different goals, objectives, tolerance for risk also. I think time will tell. I don't really have an answer other than that.
Just yesterday, I was on stage with the CMO at Placer AI, Ethan Chernovsky, and I mean, they have some of the, if not the best data in retail. He confessed that just 2 weeks ago, he was still categorized himself as an AI skeptic. And this week, he's like, I'm sold.
You see it in action, right? And you see the dollars that it's bringing to the table, and you can't deny how real it is. It's already replacing engineers, not engineers in the field, but engineers coding. Like we as a tech company need to look at that, right? And say, what's the most effective and efficient way to really use this? Do I want to replace people or not? And that's the biggest decision that these operators need to make. What's their ethos? What's their ethics? What do they want to do? How do they want to get there? And we'll just support them with their vision, really, at the end of the day.
Collaboration superpower. If you could choose one person, dead or alive, to do a partnership with to solve CRE operations, who would it be?
I had to mow around on this one a little bit, but whoever's in charge with all the government contracts, I'll partner with them.
We'll take that. So to recap here, today we learned about why fragmented workflows continue to slow down operators and why operational efficiencies compound across portfolios. We also discussed how AI and automation are already creating value, and also the importance of centralization and operating systems that may replace disconnected point solutions. Where can Tangent listeners and commercial real estate owners and operators and our beloved audience learn more about Fyxt and connect with you?
Yeah, and I appreciate it, and I enjoyed this so much. Thank you. Fyxt.com, Fyxt. There's a bunch of information on the website, but if you want to, contact us directly, we'd be happy to walk through the use case, have a conversation about what your vision is for the business, and see if we can be a solution for you and a partner.
Ryan Botwinick, CEO and founder of Fyxt. Thank you so much for coming to Tangent today, live from ICSC PropTech in Vegas.
Thank you for having me. This was great.
Muchas gracias. If you learned something new or enjoyed the conversation, text a friend the link to this episode right now. You can find links, resources, and ways to connect with us in the show notes.